Hello and welcome to another Doctor's Assistant 1 video. Today I'm doing a review of Army of Death, which is the 155th Monthly Range release, so a little bit of a, housekeeping, for lack of a better term, thing here, which basically means that the next story in the monthly range, being Curse of Davros, I have reviewed on the channel, so if you're any bit interested in hearing about what my thoughts are on that story, please do check that review out. Also, along those lines, I have the previous story, or the previous two stories, which are Silver Turk at 153, and then 154 would be Witch of the Well, I think it's called. As of this recording, I've only listened to this one, Army of Death, and Silver Turk. I have yet to listen to Witch of the Well, but when I do, I'm planning on doing a 8th Doctor Mary Shelley overview, not too dissimilar to how I did that 4th Doctor Adventure Series, Series 1 overview for that. So, yeah. So if you like that, hopefully you'll like this, but video, this version of it, even sort of thing, with the 8th Doctor and Mary Shelley overview. Anywho, without further ado, I'll get into the review. We have the 1996 TV movie logo there, Army of Death, who it's written by, and Paul McGann and the other person who plays Mary Shelley, 8th Doctor banner and or Time Vortex there, as well as some other cast members, Big Finish there. Paul McGann and 8th Doctor and Mary Shelley there, as well as what I imagine to be the city place. I can't remember the name of it. I think Stronghold, I think it was called. And then a massive skeleton-y type figure, which is really cool. Or the King Bone dude, or whatever it was called. Can't remember what it was called now. Or the Bone Man, even. Army of Death, or Doctor Who, Army of Death, and then Paul McGann image there. 155 to indicate that it's the 155th release in the month range. Big Finish logo there. Then on the back it's got massive synopsis because it's got a lot of content in the story. The cast list, the release, which was back in 2011, as well as the runtime, 120 minutes, so 2 hours. Other releases you would enjoy, as well as the discs and that, as well as the writer's notes. So yeah, my major, one criticism, or one of the weakest areas I would say for this story for me would probably be part 3, from what I do remember of it. I think part 3 was was an exposition dump of an episode, really. It had a lot of, sort of stuff to go through and that, and I didn't really get a lot of it. I don't think it probably helped that during me listening to this one, I got a very bad headache, so that probably didn't help, which is ironic considering that last time the week that I was trying to review or go over listening to each of the episodes in the Jenny box set to do the review for that. I didn't have a good week that week either, so clearly I need to stop listening to Big Finish Audio's note. But in all seriousness though, I think this one might work, or the whole series might be better overall, or my experience with listening to these might be better if I listen to all 3 of them, and that, which I might do for the purpose of the overview, maybe not, I don't know. But I'll cross that bridge when I get there. But yeah, part 3 was probably the weakest. The 2 that I did like the most were probably part 1 and part 4. Not just because part 4 was the ending, but also because it just had, I don't know, I like the visual aspect of the skeletons and the dead people and that, and I'm not a complete idiot. A story called The Army of Death, I did expect a lot of people dying in it, but even though that's the case, it doesn't feel too dark, or to me anyway, in some respects anyway. It finds that balance. It's weird. It's more sort of just intense, like the looming presence of death is always around, but that doesn't always mean everyone's getting killed here and there all of the time anyway. I mean, there are deaths, but as I say, it's I think it's more interesting, the talk around death and that, and the concepts and theories and this and that. And Paul McGann is phenomenal, as usual, as you would expect. It's Paul McGann. He is, very charismatic, very charming, very sort of quick-witted in terms of his humour. He has quite a lot of humour and not elevates this story, but, well, he does for me. He definitely elevates the story for me, but he also brings a lot of, I think the phrase that I'm going to use, or terminology I'm going to use, is comedic levity. I don't know if that's actually correct to say that in the context of what I'm trying to say, but yeah, I think he makes basically the darkness of this story feel a little bit more hopeful and that. And I mean, even Mary Shelley's character even makes a comment about him being quite sort of, how could you take interest in these abhorrent things and that? And it's like, well, as he points out, if you've been around the block as long as he has, you have to take the good in the deepest of darknesses of things, and that. You don't quite say it like that, but also this story gets a big thumbs up from me for two references to the classic series, which for me, I think this is the first Big Finish audio that I can think of that has two references to the classic series, that being Deadly Assassin and the Whomobile. I'll not mention what those specific details, I'll leave the specific details out of this review, but yeah, I like the fact that they're both referenced. Barnaby Edwards, I think, is the director, I think it was, of this story, but he's also the guard in this story as well, so he's in the story, and he gave a really good performance as well. I actually quite like the guard. I think the politics stuff was very ham-fisted and very complex and complicated for me to follow on a personal level, and I think there was too many characters, but on the flip side, you could argue, well, I do often say one criticism that I bring up with Doctor Who in recent memory is that a lot of the time it doesn't feel like it's got this world, living, breathable universe. That's what I say that I like about Star Wars more over Doctor Who, but here it does feel like this place is very breathable, very lived in, because there are so many different characters and whatnot. The Eighth Doctor is very intelligent as well, but it's really weird to have him be paired up with such an intelligent companion as well, in my opinion anyway, because usually, or quite often, he takes on the sort of almost teacher-student role, so the student obviously not knowing as much, but here Mary Shelley doesn't almost know as much as the Doctor, but she's definitely bright enough, and she's got quite a lot of sort of skills to bring to the table. She's inquisitive, she asks the right questions, and I think she challenges the Doctor as well, especially in part 4, which I really like, and there's this one line that she says something about the constant companion of death and that, and she almost falls in love with the Doctor, which I don't know, I don't mind, because unlike say a character like Riversong, Mary Shelley seems to be portrayed so vastly the opposite. If River was here, Mary Shelley's over here, in terms of River feels like such a unbelievably sort of what's the right phrase, sort of just unbelievably sort of badly written female character, and just sort of unruly, and just, well, not unruly, but that's not the right word, but definitely just manically sort of, I don't know, just doesn't seem to fit right with the personality of the Doctor, whereas I think Mary Shelley does in this story, and that, but she mentions about this other person, though, that she likes, but that might be the fact that that person might have died, and now that she's on these adventures with the Doctor, maybe she's falling in love with him, maybe. I'm not sure on that. But, yeah, they work well, and there are some interesting moments between a lot of different characters and that, and that's the thing, there's so much stuff to come over here that I probably need to listen to this story again a second time. What were I going to say? one last thing that I can think of off the top of my head is that this story kind of reminds me of Genesis of the Daleks, and what I mean by that is that like there's one city in one part of the planet clearly, and then another city on the other side of the planet. And if you know where I'm going with this, it's like, you know, the Khalid city and the Thal place, and then in that story anyway, then there's like that middle place where there's like loads of mutants and that, but the Wastelands even. But yeah, so in that respect, it kind of reminded me of that. I adore the skeletons, however, in this. The skeleton design and the idea of visually seeing that is awesome to me. I don't know why, but I'm just enamored with that. That looks so cool, like picturing them and that, and they're so cool, sort of simplistic but really effective villains and monsters, for lack of a better term, and I think that's what this one has over some of the other stories, like, and it's nice that, you know, you start this trilogy with Silver Turk with an established Doctor Who villain like the Cybermen, but end on something a bit more sort of randomly out there and just sort of, you know, well, for lack of a term, throwaway, you know, just a one-off sort of monster and bad guy. But though that doesn't mean that, don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean that they're any less developed or fleshed out. For skeletons, they've actually got quite a lot of flesh on their bones, in terms of them being villains and that. And I think it's pretty cool that, like, the sort of main bad guy, in my head anyway, became huge and massive and that, almost like a Titan from Attack on Titan, and that and was stomping around the place and that was pretty cool to visualize that. And yeah, and I like how Mary Shelley has this like notebook, and she consistently writes in it and that throughout the adventure. I don't know if she does that from Silver Turk to this one, but it'd be very interesting. I am really looking forward to doing the overview of this trilogy, because again, I really enjoyed listening to Silver Turk, and for me, this story didn't quite reach Silver Turk levels of awesome, but it has a really good framework, in my opinion, has a lot of good concepts, but it's the landing and the sort of their execution that makes it fall down for me. So overall, I'd still give it a strong 7 out of 10 though. Everyone performed really well, and the music is outstanding actually. It's really good. It's actually got some really good music, which is ironic considering Big Finish is a audio format. This is the only story that I can think of where the music really shines through and has a lot of atmospheric and, for lack of a better term, experimental and eerie, atmospheric, dark, stingy music, like strum beats of like an acoustic guitar to really sort of almost like correlate with the visual aid of the skeletons marching and the skeleton sort of almost like, you know, like imagining play on their like rib cage, like, you know, like strumming against their rib cage to play music or something funny like that. But yeah, I'd give this story a 7 out of 10, a strong 7 out of 10. I know that's a lower score for most of the Big Finish audios that I've listened to, but still, it's still a strong story, and I did enjoy listening to it. It's just not as good as some of the other ones, but yeah, 7 out of 10. Thanks for watching, comment, rate, and subscribe.